We're not going back to the way we were 100% or probably even close.
Welcome to this episode of Open Up Digitals, and this episode we'll be talking to Dion Hinchcliffe. The way in which we work is changing rapidly because of the digitalization of our workplace and the new technological possibilities, and of course because of the corona, everything has accelerated. Now, how should companies deal with that, and how can employees stay connected with the company and stay involved? And how can we do things differently or maybe even better, and what can we learn for the future? So today we're talking with Dion Hinchcliffe. He's the Vice President and Senior Analyst of Constellation Research in Washington, D.C. He's an internationally recognized thought leader on digital transformation, a frequent keynote speaker, and a best-selling author of 2 books on the intersection of technology and business. Welcome to you, Dion. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're happy to have you. We've been talking about the future of work, about the changes in the way that we collaborate and communicate, even consummate. And until recently, this was mainly about the digitization. And of course, the corona has had a great influence on that. Are there things that you see, are aware of that are changing rapidly because of this corona?
Well, I think you could safely say that we've seen the mass digital transformation of work globally faster than any one of us would have thought possible, right? In a matter of weeks, you had hundreds of millions of people around the world moving into their homes to do their work. And now you had the CEOs of major corporations who had to lead their organization entirely through a Wi-Fi connection, for example. These are big changes. We've seen that now that work is almost entirely a digital experience. And that's where it was all headed, but it was taking years and years and years. And now it's not been achieved perfectly, of course. We had to do it very quickly, but it's essentially happened. So it's the biggest shift in work during our lifetimes. It's not clear to me that everyone knows how significant all of this is. And we're learning so much now. The tools themselves are changing so rapidly. You see, platforms like Microsoft Teams are adding new things practically every week because we're learning so much about how people are working differently from home. That's the real migration that we've seen is this, the real digital transformation of work is upon us, and we're still going through it. It's going to happen as long as we're in lockdown. And it will likely continue forever onward. We're not going back to the way we were 100% or probably even close. So, that's what's happened.
Yeah, so we've changed really rapidly under great pressure, of course, and we did not do it in a perfect way, but at least we're doing it. But there's a pressure also on companies to adapt to this digital future, of course, and to change and to grow. And they're looking actually for help to start and to speed up this process. Now, you've been talking about 4 strategic frameworks for the digital transformation. Can you tell the viewers a little bit more about this, about these 4 strategic frameworks and how Corona maybe has given new insights on those frameworks?
Sure, and the frameworks themselves can easily be found in Google if you type in 4 digital transformation frameworks, and so you can find them. But they all have the same pattern at the core, that change is very hard to drive from one single part of your organization, right? So, a small digital team or even an IT department or even HR has a hard time changing a huge organization. And so change programs that aren't decentralized, that don't involve everyone who's interested and motivated in driving change, just move slowly. They don't change very effectively, or they only change parts of the organization. So the frameworks that I have all describe how we take the change agents in the organization, the people who want to build a new world, who are willing and able to invest the time and the resources in their local part of the organization to drive change, and how to connect them with the resources and the knowledge and the know-how and the best practices and the lessons learned that the organization has had so far. right? And to give them a toolkit, a resource toolkit for change in their part of the organization that's been built and proven from that central point. So leadership is still really important, but both top down and bottom up, and you want to tap into that, and then you want to unleash it. Those frameworks really focus on how to do that, how to build that distributed community that can drive 1,000 points of change inside your organization. Along the way, you also have to expect unintended consequences and take advantage of them. Most planned change has a fixed outcome that you're aiming for. But when you create distributed change, you get many unexpected things that you didn't know were coming. And some of them are amazing, right? So when I see distributed change programs that they scale better and they reach out and drive change far more effectively and thoroughly, they create these unexpected innovations. And then you want to find those, and the breakthroughs, you want to make sure that you're spreading them across the organization, that you're scaling them up to the size of your business. And so the frameworks show you how to do all of those things.
Okay.
And that it's, by the way, a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? It's not something that you're never done, right? You're just going to keep doing that.
A lifelong learning process, actually. I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the distributed way of companies work. Because of this technology and because of the corona, everybody's now, of course, working from their homes, and it's very hard for companies. They really struggle with keeping their employees happy, to keep them involved, and to see that their experience, their employee experience, is actually very good. So they're looking for tools or apps or other ways to reach out. Do you have any tips for us on apps or other ways to keep everybody happy and to keep them on board?
Yeah, sure. So the problem with distributed work is that everyone is in their work silo. They're in their homes. There's no way to stand up and see other people, or to pop into somebody's office, or to hold an impromptu meeting, or to talk in the break room. And so there's a lot of connection that's lost. A lot of information flow is now not there, and you don't have this awareness of the organization. So I'll answer that in two ways. First, tactically, there's a lot of things, of applications that will allow you to surface situational awareness, right? So one of my favorite is something called Status Hero, and it's a dashboard that allows people to see what everyone else is working on. What are they working on? What did they just finish? What projects did they just get completed? What customers just said that they were thrilled with what they just received? So it provides an but it actually collects it from existing tools. So it's not extra work to do. Status Hero can plug into a lot of your existing applications, pull out what people are doing, what they've accomplished, and then publicize it so that leaders know what's going on, workers on the ground feel like they're part of a big machine again. So you really want to have these situational awareness tools. Status Hero is just one, but it's one that's quite popular.
Okay.
And another one is something called work coordination platforms. And they are a semi-structured collaboration tool that allows an organization to create a living and visible process that people know what's going on. They know what they're supposed to be doing very clearly. Everyone knows the status of what's going on. And it's great for organizing projects and running them. It's good for operations teams. It's good for people in sales and marketing who are working on big activities to structure them a little bit and then see what everybody's doing. And it's become a large industry. I'm going to be doing a lot more coverage of it. So tactically, there's a lot of these great new types of applications. Strategically, we need more global communications and collaboration. So things like enterprise social networks and online communities allow the entire organization to get wired together and see what everybody's doing, for everyone to get a voice, for leaders to be more open and transparent. And it's a very strategic way of connecting the organization so that everybody's working like kind of a big, bee colony where everyone can be seen and is visible. Everyone has a voice. And you can collaborate, and it scales very well. 1,000 people can work on a project in these very effectively. And so we want to see that kind of new digital working, because email and video calls are very fatiguing. They don't scale well. You can't do video calls with large, hundreds of people. You don't want to. You actually can, but you don't want to. And the same thing with email. You can, but you don't want to. But these tools are designed for that sort of that mass transparency, visibility, mass collaboration. So that's what we would really like to see. And then the last two pieces are we're seeing two tracks developing to create a more mature employee experience. One is to create a center of gravity where you don't have to switch between 40 communications and collaborations tools and 40 productivity tools and 40 line of business applications. They all work from one place. So, applications like Microsoft Teams and Slack have hundreds of integrations for all the most popular applications, give you one place to work. It creates a simpler, more streamlined employee experience because it's all digital now. So we need to have this more streamlined and less, have less friction in it. And then the other one is we see organizations broadly, and I actually do this a lot myself, designing employee experiences for high value moments, things like sales operations, project management, or HR issues like planning maternity leave and handing all your work over, things like that. We're seeing much more designed end-to-end employee experiences.
So it's also actually learning on the fly and getting better and improving every day, actually.
Yeah, I see it happening.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it should be easy to use, it should be transparent, people should be able to communicate, of course, and get heard. Now, you also said that people are the most important building blocks in creating a digital organization. Now, we've talked about the apps and the tools, but what can people themselves do in order to change their behavior or to create a workplace where they feel more comfortable, more at home, and what skills do they need to adapt more, and how can leaders help them with that?
Sure. Well, so first of all, work is about people, and teamwork is about more than one person working together, and that's what most businesses are, is teams of teams. And so it has to be all about the people. But now we're all in this digital medium, and it works a little differently. It has a lot more power, right? So when you work with a much more powerful tool, you have to be aware of what it can do, right? And how it can help you. And also that you have responsibilities. Information can get out much more easily in these digital environments. So you have to keep your customers' data safe and things like that. So you have responsibilities when you have a lot more power too. But there's really simple things. One, with digital environments, we can collaborate much more easily than we ever have before. We can build a team from around the world of a bunch of people who have never really worked together and suddenly become very effective in this very short amount of time. And we can add video to that and unstructured communication and collaboration documents to that. And we can come together and get something done and build it together easier than we ever have before. And so there's some foundational skills to do that. One, because we're so distributed, we need to make sure we have transparency and we need to share. So techniques like working out loud, that's one of the foundational digital skills that every worker should know. And it's very simple. It's just lightly narrating what you're doing, right? Sharing the documents, work in progress. And your stakeholders will come from all over the network, all over your organization, all over the world. And if they feel like they're affected by that work, they're going to help you, right? They're going to give you ideas. They're going to give you suggestions. These are very powerful new collaborative ways of working, and they're very emergent. Instead of trying to plan everyone who needs to be in a project space, if you work more openly in these environments, if you work out loud, everyone who really does need to be involved will come around. And those are the types of new working models that naturally happen in digital networks if you let them. And you don't use closed off environments. Email is a very outdated tool because it assumes we have perfect foreknowledge of who should be involved in a collaboration. These new tools don't assume anybody. They let anybody who any self-interested party come and help, right? So it's a very different way of working. We also have to set aside time for learning, because if we're not continuously learning, we're continuously falling behind. Right? The world is changing at an exponential pace right now. So leaders need to give workers the time to learn. They need to give them the tools to learn. Digital learning is at an all-time, and what you can do with digital learning today is tremendous, but most workers are underserved. They're not being given these powerful new tools for literally remaking themselves, right? Transforming themselves into much more effective workers with many more skills, very multidisciplinary, very transdisciplinary. We're seeing it more like platforms like Coursera are making it possible. We're seeing organizations bringing in these massively open learning environments, and people are getting degrees and they're getting proven skills. They're doing experiential learning. but it's very uneven. We're seeing a lot of organizations are just so impacted by coronavirus. They're not reacting. They're not saying, look, we've changed so much. We need to help you change. We've changed your work environment. We've changed your tools, but we haven't helped you change. And that has to be addressed. And I think the final piece, just to round out three key items is we need time for and tools for what's called sense making. We have so much information pouring upon us and so many activities that we do. We do much more every day than we ever have in the past because digital tools enable us to work quickly. And we don't have time to make sense of it all, to build our own knowledge and our own frameworks and our own ability to sort through what does all of this mean. And so we need to set aside time for that. That's a 5 or 10% of a worker's time, but they need to be given the tools to gather all this information and organize it so that they have access to it. And just have that their own personal knowledge management. So those three things alone, if we did that, we would be in much better shape.
Okay, yeah. So they should change actually their behavior to more open and willingness to share everything, and again keep learning. That's one of the things you're talking about, indeed. Now this is about the employees. Now you've also wrote an article at ZDNet about the changing role of the CIO. The Chief Information Officer, and this role is undergoing an immense change and shift at the moment, of course. Innovation, business leadership, and ability to drive change at scale are now very important. Can you explain the role of the CIO? How is that changing now, and how could they catch up?
So the Chief Information Officer used to be a role where it was really involved in keeping the lights on the digital side of the business, keeping all the IT systems operational, and supporting users. But now digital has become the business, right? So every company is becoming a tech company. And so we see that the role of the Chief Information Officer is now the Chief Innovation Officer, and is much more involved in building the new parts of the business, where IT has gone from being a cost center to what we call a P&L, profit and loss center. It is the business, right? Now we're selling these services. How we deliver customer experience is how we make money, right? So the CIO, just as they were getting their role is becoming much more central to the business itself, they're losing control of IT because it's moving out to the cloud. Shadow IT, I mean unsanctioned IT, not approved by the CIO, is almost 1/2 of IT in most organizations, in the average organization. It's usually not mission critical systems, it's things on the edge. Applications on the edge. But we're seeing that most tech spend now in a company, just over a majority, is now outside the CIO. So they're now becoming an influencer more than the person who directs technology across the organization. The biggest power they need to cultivate now is the ability to guide all of these other parts of the organization that are using technology. The marketing budget for digital is almost as big as the IT budget today, right? We're seeing operations buying lots of technology. We're seeing the supply chain spending lots of their budget on technology. And the Chief Customer Officer and the Chief Data Officer are also creating large marketing environments. Actually, Coca-Cola now has a new CIO role in the marketing team. They have the CIO of marketing. The marketing budget got so big that they have their own CIO just for marketing. So the only way that global CIO can influence this is by having the best ideas. Yeah. That is the only way you can drive influence, is saying, yeah, you have what you're doing is good here, but here's the best way we can do this as an organization. And so now it's about having the superior ideas and winning there.
Yeah, so big shift indeed from a separate role to a more controlling role with more CIOs indeed in the company. For the better part of 2 decades, you have been skewering conventional business wisdom and transforming complex ideas into practical approaches. Now, as the last question, I would like to ask you, do you have anything that the people can put to work immediately? Do you have any advice on what happened with COVID, this period, that people can put into use tomorrow?
So I would say that the organizations that need to do something today need to split basically into 2 tracks. You need to create what I call the survival team. And that's a matrix part of your organization. It takes the best ideas and say, how can we keep going as long as possible until things go back, things improve, right? So you need the survival team. And then The other team you need is the revitalization team, which is what are we going to do after this is over? Because it's going to be a different world, right? And there's going to be people merging and acquiring companies that are all, most organizations are very unhealthy financially. Many won't survive. There's going to be sharks in the water. So you need to find a way of have advanced planning now. What are you going to do when things get better? And then, but in the meantime, you have to have that survival team that says, how can we automate our business better? How can we do talent differently so that it's more on demand? We see a big rise in the gig economy. So I think you need to have those two capabilities to put your best talent on deck to survive right now for as long as possible, while you also have another team figuring out what you're going to do to come back, to grow and get revitalized again. Those are the most important things I think we need to do right now.
I think that's a very good advice indeed, to take care of the emergency right now and also have the longer picture in your mind to see what happens in the future. Thank you very much, Dion, for talking to us. It was a great pleasure to listen to you. Dion Hinchcliffe, here on our show of Open Up Digitals. And I also thank the viewers for watching this episode. And I really hope to see you again next episode when we interview somebody else very interesting about the future of work. Thank you very much.